Welcome to that pocket page book that we're making. We're doing it page by page, so we're having a lot of fun. It's a cloth book, we've got lots of different pockets going on, and we've been making quite a few. So we're actually up to pocket page number 12 today, and it's going to be this pocket here, which we've got some fun little elasticated pockets in there, and another little flat pocket up above. So I just thought it would be kind of fun to include something like that. There's one up here in some different colours, so that you can see how it might look in other colours. So if you're getting the pattern already from GourmetQuilter.com for the pocket pages, you'll have something that looks like this that tells you all about it, tells you what to cut for each page and how to do it. So I'm just going to show you how I've done it so that you can read words and then think about how it looks. So I've actually already started. We needed some stiff stuff this time. There's a small pocket above, a flat pocket there, which we've done those before, so I've gone ahead and put that one on. The instructions are still in there if you're needing to go through those again. For the elastic pocket, so I've got a piece of elastic here, and we need a length that's the same width as our page basically. So I've left it a little bit longer for a reason, because I'm going to pull it through, but we don't want it to come right through, so I'll show you all that shortly. So the pocket itself is quite long. So as I said, the cutting information's in the pattern. So I've gone ahead and you sew it into a tube first. So I've gone ahead and done the stitching, but I just wanted to show you how I went after that. So I'm just going to turn it out the right way. And then I didn't particularly want the seam at either the top edge or the lower edge, because we've got other things like elastic and little pleats and things going on. So I'm going to press the seam so that it's sort of halfway up, rather than at an edge, but try and get the seam going all one way if you can, and just so that it sits nice and flat. But rather than having it at an edge, I'm just going to have it in the middle there somewhere. So I'm just going to be pressing that, and you can press the whole tube into a flat strip, but just have that seam somewhere along the middle. It doesn't have to be exactly in the middle, it just needs to not be at an edge because it gets in the way. So that's pretty straightforward. And so that's all ready now for us to start stitching and getting ready for the elastic. So what we need to do is we need to make a casing for the elastic, something to thread the elastic through so that it can sit within. So decide which is your top edge. Along the top edge, do a line, we've done this before, like the top stitching fairly close to the fold, but do want the next one a little bit further away, maybe 3/8 of an inch, so that there's plenty of room between the two rows of stitching for our elastic to move within. So I'll go ahead and I'll do my stitching. So 2 rows, one close to the fold and then one maybe 3/8 rather than just 1/4 of an inch away, a little bit further to allow for your elastic. So I'll go ahead and do that and I'll show you the next bit. So I've gone ahead, I've done my 2 rows of stitching, which allows my elastic to fit through. But before we put the elastic in, it's a really good idea, because we're making these pockets divided so that there's actually 4 little pockets along there. We need to mark where they're going to go before we suddenly gather it all up with that elastic. So I'm suggesting that you find your halfway mark with your fabric, and you can easily do that by folding it, and then just draw a line on your pocket. So I'm just using a pencil, just find something so that you can see it later on. And then you want to do 2 more. Again, all the measurements are written in the pattern for you, so mark one either side as well, so that you can position all your pockets stitchings where you need to, so that it'll all work out for you in the end. So that's so there's 3 lines. So to make 4 pockets you need 3 dividing lines. So I've gone ahead and I've done all that on the pocket. It's now ready for me to thread the elastic, but I think while I'm here I might measure this one and we've got to mark where the pocket's going to go, because it doesn't come to the bottom or anything like that. So again, all the measurements are written in the pattern for you. So we just want to mark a line. So this doesn't need to be a heavy line, but I'm suggesting that you do draw a line, because it'll just be easier to line the pocket up when we put it on there. And then we've got to do another one for the top of the pocket, and it's reasonably important that we have all these markings to help us because otherwise things don't always go where you think they're going to go. So I've done that, but then we also need to mark the halfway, and not just the halfway but either side of it as well, for where those pocket dividers are going to go, because by the time this has got the elastic and it's gathered in, these will have to come in a whole lot closer together than they are at the moment. So we can go ahead and we can mark those as well, so that everything's ready to take the elastic. And if you want to go ahead and mark it, you don't need a whole line, but it might be helpful to mark top and bottom of those lines so that you can do it top and bottom to line them up. Is not a bad idea. That should be enough of a marking for you so that you can see where to put things once we've got that elastic in. So that's already, this just now needs its elastic, so I've left, as I mentioned, I left the elastic a bit longer, but I've marked where I want to cut it off at the measurement in there. And I've just got a safety pin. You might have a bodkin. I often use a safety pin for threading into, and I'm just going to insert that elastic in between my 2 rows of stitching. So a safety pin works quite well in the absence of a bodkin, and you can just thread that in all the way along. And because we've already marked our pockets, we're doing very well. So I'll just get this all the way through. So that's going to pull up against that pin that I've got shortly, and I'm very happy about that, because what I want to do, in fact I can do it before I go any further, is I want to now stitch across to hold the elastic, and then I can chop off that excess bit there. So I will just stitch that fairly quickly, just I don't know, 1/4 of an inch in or 3/8 of an inch in from the edge, and you're just doing the stitching back over it just to hold the elastic. And I can take that pin out, I can cut the excess elastic off, because it won't pop inside now. We don't want to lose it in there because we have to start all over again. So I'm just going to get this to come out the other end, and then we'll stitch across this end as well. So you don't want to let that go because it'll jump right back in there. And so we'll stitch again across here just like we've done at the other end, and then I can take that safety pin out because it won't go anywhere now. And then we need to spread those gathers fairly evenly. So the best way I found to do that is simply to extend it as much as you can. You may just need to wriggle the fabric around a little bit, but so that you feel the gathering is fairly even along there. So it's looking pretty good, I think, like that. And so the next stage, once we've got it so that we're happy with our gathering being relatively even in there, is we need to start positioning it here so that we can sew those divider lines. So now the top edge is probably going to sit quite nicely along there, but the bottom is all flapping around. That's why we marked top and bottom. So you'll be able to see your marks that you drew your lines on, and you've made a mark on the background. So you can pop a little pin in there if you want to, just to hold it, and you can do both ends. So because I marked both ends, we can put it down here as well. And you need to do that with all 3 markings so that you can do the stitching line right through. So I'll just do this first one just to show you, and then I can do the others afterwards and come back. So I'm just going to do my stitching line right on that line that I marked onto the pocket. So right from the top right through to the bottom. And you back stitch to hold it at the top, and stitch all the way down. And then I'll do exactly the same thing on the next row, but you don't particularly need to watch me do all that, but you will have these loopy bits here. So when I've done these dividing rows, I'll come and show you how to deal with those rows. So I've gone ahead, I've stitched my all 3 of my dividing lines. I've also done my basting down the sides of the page there, just to hold the edges of the pocket. So now we've got all these little bits it looks quite beautiful as a little frill, but we're not really wanting a little frill or flounce on our pocket, we want pockets. So because we've got so much there, what we want to do is pop a little pleat in the bottom edge. So by pulling that sort of up and then flattening it back out again, you can create, and if you could just keep an eye on sort of the distance that it's more or less central, it's not essential. You could even do them slightly to one side, but I think you'll find that it'll sit better if we open it out like a little pleat either side there, and you can put a pin in just to hold those pleats, because then we're just going to stitch across that lower edge shortly when we know that everything's in place, and our pocket will be done. So it's kind of fun. So just pull that pocket up and then flatten it out sort of from the center there, so that it's sitting as far as possible fairly central, that little sort of pleated area, to the actual pocket dividing lines. It doesn't have to be exact, but fairly close helps it just sit nicely. And so it's not really a measuring thing, it's more just a making sure that it's sitting down nice and flat there. So now all we need to do now, because I've got all these little pleats in place, is stitch right along the bottom edge there, like we do when we put these other pockets on, maybe 1/8 of an inch in or close to that edge, and then our pocket will be done. So I'll go ahead and I'll just stitch across that so you can see how that goes. So when I get to the pins, I'm just going to take them out as I go, so that they're not in the way of the sewing. And that really just finishes that little pocket off quite nicely. So because I was thinking of a little sewing thing, I thought little cotton reels could fit in here. However, I'm also thinking that my favourite toy cars could fit in here, or some little finger puppets, or some little dollies. Oh, some little dollies would be cute. Or maybe some little farm animals, or maybe I'm a scrapbooker and I've got lots of other little gidgy gadgets. Basically, all sorts of treasures will now fit inside those pockets. So this will get taken in when we join the page in on both ends there. But other than that, we've got these lovely little pockets that we can just fit all sorts of interesting things in. And then there's this pocket up here that's just the flat pocket. So that was it for pocket page number 12. And I will see you again with pocket page number 13.